People leave the country for various reasons. I left because I was fed up and I took a sabbatical. Um, I thought I was taking a break from life, but what I actually did was walk straight into a crash course in self awareness, solitude, guilt, joy, and surrender. And I wasn't expecting any of it. If you're thinking about getting away, leaving the country for a season or even longer, here are 10 lessons that I learned that may help you as you explore your options. Stick around. Hey there. So, today I promised you guys more content surrounding my selling everything, quitting my job, and taking off, leaving the country, and coming back. So, in this particular video, I'm going to talk about, I came up with 10 things, 10 lessons that I learned, not only about myself, but about life as a result of taking a sabbatical and traveling the world. So, let's hit it. Number one, it's easy to say I want freedom, but making it happen is where reality begins. Courage is what you do, and fear is what you feel, and they can coexist. Um, so the night before my flight, I was sitting on the floor of my daughter's apartment. As I mentioned, I had sold everything and quit my job, sold my car, and this was the real deal. This was it. I was flying out with just a one-way ticket to France in the morning. And here I am sitting on the floor, still trying to figure out what to pack for a year of travel. I packed and then I unpacked, and then I packed and then I unpacked. It was a lot. And fear kind of settled in. I was like, snap, what did I do? Is this, I was second guessing myself. Is this a mistake? Did I just blow my life up? And what will people think? I'm over 50. Am I too old to be doing this? What the hell? But I'm sitting in the middle of this floor. I need to pack these clothes. I got a flight to catch in the morning. It's too late to go back now. So don't think that just because I did this that I wasn't afraid, because I was, but I've done a lot of things in life that I've been afraid to do. And I did it while I was afraid. I felt, I discovered in life that's how you push through it. Yeah, recognize the fear, understand it, and then do it. Do it afraid. So I did it. I packed my bags and I jumped on that plane in the morning and I was gone. Um, so lesson number one, courage doesn't erase fear. It walks with it. Two things can be true at the same time. Courage and fear can coexist. Do it afraid. So that was lesson number one. Lesson number two, just because I feel guilty doesn't mean that I made a bad decision or the wrong decision. And I should be allowed to focus on myself, right? Uh, I had feelings of guilt, you know. Like I said, I was second guessing myself and I was thinking, am I being irresponsible as a grown person? I sold my house that I worked so hard for. My children won't have a place to come home to. What will my mom think? What will people think? Here I am over 50 and I'm like, what's my mom going to think? Now, granted, my mom had passed several years prior to my taking the sabbatical, but, um, I was still concerned about that. And wondering about what other people would think. And, I I was a single mom basically all my life. I was always, I raised two children on my own. Um, I was always the responsible one. I had to be the example of what to do in life, how to make wise decisions. I was taught you don't quit a job without having a job. You know, I worked hard to have my house. Um, I taught my children independence. Don't allow yourself to be in a situation where you have to depend on people. These are values that I was taught, um, that I tried to instill in my children, and here I am, homeless, you know, uh, on purpose, homeless, jobless on purpose, and I'm just taking off, and I don't have a specific plan for the end of this thing. I took off and I'm like, we gonna see what we gonna see. And who knows, I want to leave it open to whatever happens. So, yeah, I was, I was guilty. I was feeling guilty, before I left. And, you know, I thought I was too old to be doing this. This isn't something someone over 50 does. This is a 20 something thing. The youngins do this stuff. But that guilt feeling is conditioning. I had to go through my mind and say, okay, are these thoughts of guilt true? Are you really irresponsible? No. I have a solid history. Like I'm in an interview, I have a history of, a proven history of being responsible. I had a reputation of being responsible, doing the responsible thing all my life. I'm the oldest of three, so I'm a first child. I'm an oldest child. Responsibility was my thing. So, yeah, it makes sense that I'm doing something that goes against what I consider being responsible. And yes, the guilt feelings would be there. But I explored the truth of it and I determined, you know, all my life I've focused on other people, my children, what's best for them, um, the community, Black community. Am I presenting myself in such a way that would make that would reflect well on my people, my family, all that stuff. It's all about everybody else. And, um, I determined it's time for me to focus on me. And there was nothing wrong with that because the things I was doing, I said I had no plan at the end of the sabbatical. But the truth of the matter is, my plan was whatever happened, I'd just come back and find a job. Like I was laid off. I've been laid off before and I wasn't planning that. And I knew how to recover from that. And I did several times, thanks corporate America. But yeah, so yeah, my feelings of guilt were understandable, but that doesn't mean that I made the wrong decision or a bad decision for myself. So that was number two. That guilt does not mean I made the wrong decision or a bad decision. Okay. Number three, isolation doesn't have to equal loneliness. Solitude can heal things I didn't even know were broken. So I was alone the majority of my sabbatical. You know, um, at that time, the world was semi-open during the pandemic. I mean, we were still wearing masks. I had to walk around with the carte de whatever. It was a card that said I was vaccinated to go to some places in these other countries. Now, these other countries were being much more serious about it than many places here in the U.S. So, um, yeah, so I was roaming around, in different countries I had never been to by myself, um, sitting alone in my Airbnb in the Republic of Georgia. I experienced my first earthquake. That was something, you know. Um, but during this time, I had time to really reflect, on myself. And I became aware that I have never been in that position before, um, alone with only myself to focus on. My kids were miles away in another country. They were taking care of themselves. They were focusing on themselves. I didn't have to come home and figure out what to cook for the kids. I didn't have to worry about answering an email or getting up um, to make it to work on time. I could just focus on me. And over 50, that was the first time that I was in that position. I had my son at 21 years old. I like to say he was my 21st birthday present. Um, and got me out of college. I've never lived alone. you know um, I always had a job, or I was absorbed with trying to find another job because I had been laid off. So I didn't get to just relax and say, well, I don't have to worry about it. It was just like, if I was laid off, I had to wake up and be like, I had to get on finding another job. I didn't have to do that. It's hard to explain. I was isolated, but it allowed me time to reflect. And I have to say, I'm an introvert, so I don't really mind being by myself. But when you think about being by yourself in another country, a place that's unfamiliar to you, you don't have someone that you can just run out and hang out with if you feel like. I mean, it could be a different kind of isolation, but I took that time to reflect and figure out, hey, this is new. What does this feel like? What am I going to do with this? I never felt lonely, not once during my sabbatical did I ever feel lonely. So yeah, lesson number three. Isolation doesn't have to equal loneliness. Silence is not emptiness. It can be informative. I can be agile without losing my mind. So I've always been a planner. It was my number one cheat code for managing single parenthood. And what made me so successful at project management, it was just kind of something I did, and it came naturally to me because it was what I had to do in order to be successful, get these kids where they needed to be, pay for whatever, manage my schedule, my work schedule, their school schedule, their extra activities, whatever. I had to plan, and I like to plan, ahead. Unexpected travel hiccups, I was traveling during the pandemic, something that we had never seen in our lifetime. There were flight cancellations. So I had my whole sabbatical planned out before I left, where I was going, what dates, how long I would stay where. But it didn't, right away, my plans were like, they were gone. They were messed up because, my flight would be canceled. Something happened, a new strain. They closed some things. I was trying my best to get to Africa. I wanted to get to Cape Town, specifically South Africa. And at least twice, my plans were canceled because, they're quick to cut off Africa. Don't get me started. But, at one point, Africa was like, we found this new strain. And the rest of the world was like, thanks, cancel all the flights. Cancel all the flights to Africa. So I got caught up in that. And then just the, airlines shuffling flights around because of things happening and all the upheaval in the travel world. I got canceled a couple of times. So it came to a point where I had to get out of, because my visa, I had to get out of the country. So I had to go somewhere that wasn't in the Schengen area. So I gave up on Africa for that period of time and went over to, where'd I go? I went to Tbilisi, Republic of Georgia. So yeah, I mean, I had issues with my Airbnb where, there was one point, I think I did a video on it, and if I can find it, I may link it somewhere here. But I thought I was in a place that I was going to hang out for the rest of the holidays, and I made an agreement with the Airbnb person to extend my stay. I went out and bought stuff, things to cook with. I even bought some pillows because I was going to be there for a minute. And after I bought all this stuff, they came back and they're like, oh, the price, it's the holidays, and what we priced at was too low. So they went back on what they said. In hindsight, I should have waited until I had something in writing. I don't know, I don't know what I could have done to do that, but that was wrong. They did it last minute. I had to make a decision if I was going to stay there or what I was going to do. Things happened where I had to make a decision quickly, change my plans quickly. So I got to the point where I became okay with making plans only a week or two in advance. Before, I was like, it's all planned out. My whole plan, I wound up threw that plan out, and I started just making decisions on where I was going to go, where I was going to stay with a 1 to 2 week lead time. And normally that would have freaked me out. It made me nervous at the beginning, but I got used to it, and that's kind of how I went through the rest of my sabbatical. So I learned how to be more agile in the things that I do and how not to let anxiety take over, because I wasn't able to plan the way I was used to. I could plan in a shorter window and be okay with it, and also be effective. I did it, it worked for me. Lesson number 4. I can be agile without losing my mind. You figure things out because you have to, and sometimes it's at the last minute. And then I realized it wasn't as bad as I anticipated. So that's my lesson number 4. Lesson number 5. Letting go. Letting go of stuff. All our stuff. Letting go of stuff is difficult, but it can be cathartic. So, even after selling and giving away so many things, I still overpacked when I was ready to leave. But I still felt like I needed stuff. I needed my stuff. I was going to be gone for a year, but I needed all this stuff. I left with I had a big, check bag. I don't know how many inches that thing is, but a big checked bag. And then I had a carry-on bag. And then I had like a duffel, I don't know what to call it, the travel bag. So when I initially left, I had these 3 things thinking, I could swing this. But get into France, and get off that plane, and then you have these 3 bags, which doesn't sound like a lot, right? But you're carrying this stuff through subways, across cobblestones, up and down stairs, because everybody don't have lifts or elevators, you know? So imagine getting off a train, finding out you're down in a, you're down underground and you got several stairs to go up. There were a couple of times where men just came out of nowhere. I don't say out of nowhere. There were a bunch of people with me, but I got to the stairs and I had men in France just take the bag from me. No questions, no hi, ma'am, no can I help you, no nothing. They just like, give me that. Carried it up to the top, came back, got my other bag, carried it up to the top, and I just made my way up. And I'm merci, merci. Oh, Jesus, merci. I'm like, thank you. You know, but I had to have my stuff, right? Then I had to drag that stuff over cobblestones to get to my hotel or Airbnb. You know, I wound up leaving a whole suitcase of items in France. My carry-on suitcase, it was cute too. But yeah, I'm like I can't do this. So I'm like I'm gonna keep the big one and just transfer some stuff. So I took my carry-on and I put whatever I thought I could part with in it and I left that mug at the hotel with a note saying help yourself, you know, whatever you like, you know, thank you so much for the service and please donate the rest. I can't take this stuff with me. um, so I left and that was still a lot, you know, dragging that big old suitcase and that bag, you know, that I carried on my shoulder. It was a lot. And then I continued to leave things as I left. You know, I'm gonna blame Stephanie and Rashida for saying they were out and about and they would just leave stuff. Because over time, I'm like, I don't need all this. I don't need all this stuff. I don't need all these clothes. I wasn't even wearing most of them. You know, I took like some camera equipment and stuff and I used it once. Um, Never took it out again, like a tripod and some other things. It's like I never even used that I took with me, but I had to have my stuff. So anyway, you know, I found that not having as much stuff, living in smaller spaces, these Airbnbs and hotels and things I was staying in, they were much smaller than what I was used to. Life was so much more simple. You know, I had less things to worry about, less things to concern myself with. I didn't feel cluttered or surrounded by stuff, you know? Um, and even being back, I struggle to keep from falling back into this whole consumer driven world that we live in the United States. I don't want more stuff. Well, I want stuff. I window shop like crazy. You know, I will be online like, ooh, that's cute. That's cute. So, you know, having limited funds is one way to stop myself. But the other thing is like, honestly, I don't want to have to dig through a bunch of stuff. So when I look at something and before I pull the trigger, I'm like, do I want it or do I need it? You know, most of the time I don't need it, you know, and then I don't do it. Now I value physical space, you know, having, I've always valued my physical space, but my personal space and of course my physical space. And having a bunch of stuff around drains me. I mean, it always has. I think I just didn't recognize it before. Um, but I also value the unburdening of getting rid of stuff and living with a limited amount of stuff, you know. It's freeing and I enjoyed that while I was out and I want to keep that wherever life may take me going forward. So holding on to stuff can clutter not only your physical space, but your emotional and mental space. So yeah, lesson number 5, letting go of stuff is difficult, but it can be cathartic. Yeah, so this went on much longer than I anticipated. So I broke it in half. So check out part 2 for lessons 6 through 10. Thanks, and I'll see you over there.